All right, happening right now, top U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, are meeting with Ukraine officials in Saudi Arabia, obviously pushing for peace with Russia. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says Ukrainian President Zelensky apologized for his tense exchange with President Trump and Vice President Vance.
Zelensky sent a letter to the president. He apologized for that whole incident that happened in the Oval Office. I think that was an important step, and I would like to describe it as progress.
Joining us now is former Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland. KT, what are the stakes today for Ukraine?
Oh, it's complete everything. Ukraine has to figure out a way to get this back on track. Now, why? Because of that disastrous White House meeting. And so the Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, are meeting with the Ukrainians. And first of all, it's not just the apology letter that Zelensky said, but what does that mean? You know, what are they likely to give up? What does the deal look like? You know, Rubio is now really engaging in what I would call good old-fashioned shuttle diplomacy. And when my boss, Henry Kissinger, did it in the 1970s when I worked for him, it was going to one side and saying, what are your bottom lines here? What can you give up? What can you have to have? And then go to the other side separately. What do you need? What can you give up? And then start going back and forth in a very rapid fashion to try to craft a deal. The difference with this one is that everybody knows the guy making the decisions for the United States is sitting in the White House. Donald Trump is taking an active role in these negotiations. So it's not like the good old-fashioned State Department negotiations where they come up with a position and then they bring it forward and then they debate it and then they go back and forth. This is happening in rapid time and in real time.
So we understand Zelensky's not there, but everybody else is. And they're going to talk about what, maybe confidence building on both sides. First off, stop the flight, stop the drones, or you could you stop hitting energy sectors. That's what the Russians are good at. But yesterday, or a couple of days ago, we took down intelligence sharing and we took down the satellites that allowed them to see incoming rockets. The Russians took advantage of that. There's a sense, some reports say, that they'll reinstall that if they see sincerity on the Ukrainian side. Do you hear the same thing?
Yes, absolutely. You know, everyone knows that Ukraine doesn't survive without American intelligence sharing and American military equipment. I mean, they don't survive for long. So Ukraine has really no choice. They've got to show some goodwill here. They've got to come up with something to say, look, we understand the situation you're in, and here's our gesture, here's our goodwill gesture. Please turn the security sharing and the weapon system back on. The key, though, is going to be two words: security guarantees. You know, Ukraine keeps insisting they want American security guarantees, which sounds like a military security guarantee, which sounds like boots on the ground, which sounds like basically the equivalent of NATO membership. And President Trump has said that's no way. Americans are not sending military forces into this engagement.
But you know who is? Russia and France. And if Russia doesn't, France and England. And if they don't like that, the Russians say, that's a non-starter, but I can't see anything moving forward. We'll find out, because it looks like Witkoff could be going to Russia afterwards. Meanwhile, Witkoff has also got another job, Middle East envoy, and the word is he's participating in the Doha talks in an effort to broker a hostage deal and get the rest out. We made it clear to Hamas that nothing happens unless you guys get out of Gaza. What kind of impasse is that? What kind of hurdle is that?
Well, again, President Trump said it really well. He said, Hamas has no choice. He's already told Israel, go finish the job if that's what it takes. President Trump's also signed on to Israel stopping the aid and the electricity to Gaza. Hamas is finished one way or the other. And it's now a matter of how do you get American citizens back and how do you get the hostages back. I think President Trump was very moved when he met the hostages in the Oval Office last week. I met them as well, and you can't look into the eyes of those people who've been through hell and back being held hostage. I mean, their eyes are empty. They're really tough and wonderful people, but man, did they go through a lot. It's hard to see that and then somehow have a lot of sympathy for Hamas.
Right, and there's all types of proposals how to go forward, and some people are ticked off at Adam Bowler for going into Gaza to try to get those hostages out. We'll see how it goes. We'll also find out more and more reports. The hostages say there's a link between Hamas and the financing and support of the campus unrest we're seeing in places like Columbia, Yale, and Harvard across the country. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit later. KT McFarland, thanks so much.